It's the Introvert Dating Success Podcast, the show for introverted men that's all about learning how to attract beautiful women and still get your precious alone time. And now, here's your host, dating coach and fellow introvert, Harry Wilmington.
Hey guys, welcome to the Introvert Dating Success Show. I'm your host as always, Harry Wilmington. This is the show where you go to learn how to date as your introverted self while still getting your precious alone time. Thanks to everybody that's here to watch and to get your questions answered, because this show is ultimately about you. And so if you have any dating concerns or questions or situations you're going through, I want to hear about them in the chat, where you can leave your questions and I will happily answer it during the course of the show. Of course, our main topic tonight is going to be how to prove that you're not just there for sex so that you can continue to get sex. This is a situation you may come across where you're dating a young lady and you start to get into the throes of passion, and inevitably, and this has happened to me before, you've hooked up 2 or 3 times, you think things are going well, and then she hits you with so are you just in this to hook up with me? Like, is that all this is about? I want to help you figure out how to answer that situation in a way that women will definitely believe that you are there for them in addition to wanting to hook up with them, all right? So we're gonna get to all that. We're also gonna go over various comments that I got over the last couple of weeks on my YouTube channel. I always go through my comments and get your guys' questions to answer them for this show. So you can always leave comments on my videos if you want something answered. Of course, if you're watching today and you have a question, you can ask it in the chat as well, all right? This show is always sponsored by yours truly and my website, introvertdatingsuccess.com. And you will learn more about some of the things I have to offer there during the course of the show, all right? So yeah, with that said, let's go ahead and jump into, I also have a few just general topics I'm going to cover today that I found interesting based on some things I saw on TikTok and some other various stories throughout the course of the week, all right? So I believe I'm going to start the show off by answering a commenter's question that was left during the course of the week. So this first question, this guy said, "Hi, Harry. I recently had to break off a near relationship situation, which lasted 3 months, due to a shocking event on Friday night where she was sneaking shots and passed out in the hallway of her house while I was staying overnight, while all along she was saying that she doesn't drink and is vehemently opposed to alcohol abuse because she observed its effects in previous abuse marriages/relationships. She was always very good to me and never abusive, and we had a deep connection. She had extensive and complex emotional trauma from the past, but I ignored that, rationalizing that I would judge her based on how she showed up for me, which was good up until last Friday. I broke it off with her. I believe most women have some degrees and type of emotional trauma, especially by their 30s and 40s. I don't like dating women in their 20s because they're usually too immature. We have little in common and they don't know what they want." He says, "I'm in my 40s. How do you filter out women who have successfully overcome their past traumas from those who haven't? I'd rather find out these things before I get too close in the future, but don't want to filter out women who, despite their trauma, are now well enough. Any vetting or testing tips?" Well, I actually did a video about that, which you can see at my YouTube page, youtube.com/Harry Wilmington, where I talked about how to kind of vet out women that have had trauma and gotten over it. Ultimately, it boils down to, a woman. It's one thing for a woman to say, "Hey, I've gone to therapy and I've done all this work on myself and realized I have these things in place and whatever. And so I'm at a good place now," right? But the thing is, it's one thing to go to a doctor and hear these things about yourself and learn them. It's another thing to then replace the patterns that those traumas have caused you to develop, so that way you can actually function differently in a relationship. So for example, let's say a woman had a dad growing up that always yelled at her constantly. And so she's always had the fight or flight thing where she's always ready to put up a really hard fight when a guy that could be a well-meaning guy she comes across him and he says, "Hey, these are some flaws that I believe you have." She'll take that as a personal attack and then vehemently fight that guy instead of sitting and saying, "Wait a minute, what's this about?" And part of that's because as a child, she didn't have a voice. So now she feels that she has to voice everything and come at you extra hard because as a kid, she didn't get to have her voice heard. And so she feels that she has to fight you, right? So, but that's a habit that's developed as a result of that trauma. If she's not able to replace that kind of fighting technique with one that's more peaceful and calm because you're more peaceful and calm, then just because she's aware of it doesn't mean she's going to actually be able to change it. And so you have to come across those things. Like, for example, she says, okay, I'm better at listening now. And then you get into your first fight with her and she's over talking you. She's saying, that's not a thing, blah, 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 blah. Is she able to catch herself and say, wait, I'm sorry. I know I'm interrupting you a lot. That's because of my past trauma. I'm really trying to sit here and listen. So let's go over it again. Like, those are exercises that you can be able to tell, oh, she's legitimately worked on this and is still working on it, but she's clearly wanting to do that. Women, again, can be aware of their traumas and aware of things, the way that they act. We all can. That doesn't mean that it's going to incentivize us to change those things, right? So that's that part. But let's go back to the various parts of his question, right? So for starters, he says he's dated this woman for 3 months. That's around the time that things start getting really serious and you start looking to see if this is going to be a relationship, right? So at the point where in the 3rd month, he found out that she was lying about drinking because he found her, she was drunk, and she had said previously that she wasn't that way. Now you're dating a liar. And unfortunately, there's a thing that's true. We all put our best foot forward when we first start dating, but bigger things like alcohol abuse or like you've been drinking excessively and you're trying to tell a guy that you're dating for the first time, oh, I never drink. That's like almost as bad as woman being like, oh, I don't have a promiscuous past. I would never sleep with the whole football team, even though there's a video out there for doing it. Like, these are early on things that these are the kind of lies that you need to take very, very seriously, because substance abuse lies, if she's hiding the alcohol lie now, there are other substance lies that she could be hiding. And the biggest thing is most people are going to be totally fine if their partner drinks, maybe not excessively, but like a girl could say, hey, I've been to a few parties and gotten drunk here and there, whatever. Most guys would be like, well, I've done the same thing too. I'm not going to judge you on that. But it's when she lies about it, that's when you got to really kind of look at, okay, if she's lying about this thing, what other things could she possibly be lying about? Now, here's the good thing is that you caught this early, because in the grand scheme of you dating somebody, if you're with somebody 30, 40, 50 years, 2 to 3 months of dating somebody to figure out who they are is not a long time. So even though you may have done some hookups, you've had some deep conversations, you're already starting to feel a connection with this girl, that's very admirable, but you found out in 3 months that she's lied to you, right? So this is the time where if it were me, I'd have been like, oh, you lied about that, so I'm out. Like, I'm sorry. This was not something you had to lie about. And drinking is a really serious thing. And you seem to be going from like, I didn't drink at all to like you're sloshy drunk, which I didn't know in the first place. And had I known that, I may have still actually dated you. But this seems like if I'm catching you right now, sloshy drunk, I can only imagine how much more drunk you would actually get had I not caught you. So that's one of those things you got to really assess out early on, guys. If women are lying about majorly big things or omitting things or not telling you things, then you got to look at that and say, do I now trust that she's telling me the whole truth, or do I need to be out? And this is one of the situations where I'd say I'd be out, but that's me. You might be thinking like, okay, she didn't want to say that she drank because maybe in her past she got shamed for it. And so this is a different situation. You got to know your situation and decide how you feel about that. But me, I'd be out. And he said he broke it off. And the next thing he said, though, he said he believes most women have some kind of degree in types of emotional trauma, especially by their 30s and 40s. Well, the reality is, in the world of women, that's probably true. Most women have been ogled at, touched inappropriately, had much worse things happen to them. But, as guys, we've gone through traumas too. Hey, I had my dad die at one point. I've had other various things that I've had happen to me before. Like, we all go through stuff. But the reality is that ultimately, it's our jobs as adults to know the things that we've been through, look at them, see how they're affecting our lives, and say, you know what? Even though that little thing, whatever happened to me and I didn't like it, or I went through this traumatic situation, it's my job to figure out why I'm still feeling these things, fix it, learn new patterns, and then show up as a new person. Because I got news for you guys. This goes for you too. You might have been through some traumatic situations with a previous ex or in your family or whatever. The new girl that you're going on a date with does not know that at the moment, and she does not care. All she cares about is how are you showing up for her. And so we got to take this back to women are the same way. I don't care if a woman went through the most traumatic stuff. She is putting herself out there on the dating market, which to the world at large and to men is saying, I feel as though I am now authentically ready to be in a relationship. If she's coming to you and then all of a sudden her trauma's coming out and she's acting in ways or talking to you in ways or rebelling against you in ways, and then she's trying to use but I have trauma excuse, well, do you really care? Because you got to ask yourself, does knowing that change your experience with her? And if your experience with her is one where you're always getting yelled at or blamed for things or having constant yelling arguments because she doesn't know how to regulate her emotions, then you could feel empathy for her, but that doesn't change that your experience with her as a result of that is one that is very negative. And so it's not about finding somebody that has never had trauma, because everybody at some point is facing trauma. It's about finding somebody that is relatively level-headed, has been willing to fix that trauma or do the best they can to like minimize the impact of that trauma and show it for you in a way that's going to allow a relationship to function. And a lot of women like to use the excuse of, I went through trauma as a way to get away with bad behavior. I personally am just like, again, at this age, I'm not trying to have extra drama added to my relationships because life itself is going to throw that in your way. Parents are going to die. You're going to lose a job. You're going to get evicted from a house. A plethora of things are going to happen. The one thing you should be able to depend on is having a mate that is relatively sane and stable and is loyal to you. And if you're dating people that have not fixed their traumas, that is not your fault that they had the trauma, but it is their fault for not fixing it, and you don't have to suffer through that. So I would say, like, yeah, you're going to meet people, but that doesn't mean that the level of trauma that they have, you have to accept if it's at a high level, you know? And then he says, women, he said this part. He said, he doesn't date women in their 20s because they're usually too immature. They have little in common and they don't know what they want. So I will say this, is that men have this idea that all women, when they're dating, they 100% know what they want. And the reason we think that is because we operate that way. We go into things like, okay, we can't have any ambiguity. So we're kind of looking at, okay, I typically like this body shape. I want her to do X, Y, and Z. I want her to cook. I want her to clean. I want her to have a decent job. I want her to be able to go with kids. Like we typically have like a standards list of like, if she has these various things in place and she can give me a good conversation and some good bedroom action, I'm pretty set, right? But unfortunately, men then look at women and assume women must have automatically, like whatever their list is, they're going to either stick to that list, or if they don't have a list, they must not know fully what they want. And I keep trying to stress to you guys that women live in the land of maybe, meaning that, let's say, for argument's sake, right? You meet a woman and she's like, oh, I want a guy that has 6 figures, has a 6-pack, is 6 inches or more, yada, 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 right? So, and this what happened to me in college. Like, I would ask women, so what are you looking for? Which as a guy is always a dumb question to ask. And I'll get to why in a minute. So I would say, well, what do you want? And then I hear women say, oh, I want a guy that's like, really, really tall and, has a nice car and blah, blah, blah. And so I just be like, oh, well, so you don't want me. I'm 5'10". I don't have a car at the moment. I'm out of the running. Fast forward to like 3 or 4 months later. Who do I see her dating? A 5'7" guy with no car, is a bum, is probably doing some kind of substance, and she is all over him. Why did that guy win and I didn't? Because I listened to the words that women were saying to me and thinking, logically, if they're saying these things, then she must be like me, and she follows that exact list. Women are feelings-based people, meaning that depending on how a guy makes her feel, she's going to be open to changing her mind about things. I'm in Hollywood. I have friends from college, I've talked about this before, that are like, these dudes are like 5'6", 5'5", 5'7", that have dated and are married to girls that are 5'11", 6 foot, 6'1". Why did that happen? Because, again, women live in the land of maybe. Now, that's good to know, because that then ties into the fact that most women, if you ask them what do they want, they might give you a list here and there, but sometimes they'll just be like, well, I'll just know it when I see it. And for guys, that's very confusing and frustrating, because we're like, but you should just know. And it's like, again, they're leaving open the possibility that if they have a list, there might be stuff that's not on that list that they would consider if the right guy came along. Or they might realize that, yeah, the height thing's a big deal until this 5'6" guy comes along and makes her laugh and tells her she's pretty and throws down in the bedroom. And suddenly all that requirement of he has to be becomes like, but I like him. I feel things for him. So for him, I'll make an exception. And so guys go into meeting these women with the wrong mindset. You guys are thinking she's going to automatically know, and if she doesn't, that she's confused and whatever, and I don't know if I'll have a shot or not. And what I'm telling you is that if you go in knowing the ins and outs of how women are attracted and how to talk to them and how to make them feel and how to give them a good experience, then yeah, they're not going to know what they want until they see you and realize that you're presenting yourself as everything that they couldn't even imagine themselves. All right. So for guys, I say you got to leave the possibility open that the women you're talking to would actually date you, and that when you ask them what do they want, it's a dumb question to ask, because honestly, some women are just like, look, dude, if you treat me right and take me on a decent date and give me a good hookup, I'll give you the world. But if you don't leave the possibility for that and you're thinking women are like men, they need to know exactly what they want, whatever, then you're going to lose out on women that would actually date you because you think you don't have a shot, you know? So just some things I wanted to make notes of. Thank you, Guy, for sending in that question. All right. All right. Let me take a little drinky here. Shout out to green tea, you know? It's delicious. All right. So now I'm going to get into the first topic I want to talk about. All right. Which is this whole idea that sometimes men get bullied into thinking that if they're studying up on men, that they must be trying to be manipulative, they're trying to use women, and that we should just naturally know what to do. And I try to teach you guys, the reality is that most guys aren't born automatically knowing how to handle women. In fact, you know, it's funny. I just went home this weekend. It was my nephew's 8th birthday. So my brother's talking to me about how he doesn't want to have kids just like me, and that he's not really interested in dating the moment, yada, yada. He's 8 years old, right? So he calls the boy in. He's like, hey, so like, do you want to have kids when you get older? Like, oh, no. He don't want to get married. He don't want to have kids. And so my brother's thinking this is going to like now be gospel throughout the rest of his life. And my thought is like, dude, he's 8. Like when I was 8, the idea of trying to be around girls was icky enough, let alone hooking up with them, let alone trying to have a family with them and stuff like that, you know? But I say this because, so little boys aren't typically in the thought realm of, I'm going to eventually have a girlfriend. We don't even hit the idea of trying to hook up with a girl realistically until we're like 13 or 14, when our voice starts getting deeper and our nads are dropping. And then we start looking at girls and they come back, you know, 6th, 7th grade. That summer, over the summer, some of our female friends start blossoming. We're like, oh crap, women, and we have no plan. Meanwhile, they have been in the realm of thoughts and feelings and caring for people and looking at boys since like 3 or 4 years old. Even if they weren't thinking about necessarily being in a relationship with the boy, they were still getting taught about the things that typically are going to help them pursue friendship relationships as well as like long-term guy relationships, right? And I stress this because men are so unaware that while we're getting chastised for trying to learn how women function and date them because it's seen as manipulative, that women have had the game on lock for way longer than we have. And so I want to show you a couple of videos that I saw this week that illustrate this point. So here's the first one. This is a video of Deion Sanders talking about to Shannon Sharp about his Brittany Renner interview when she was on the show, talking about how she finessed guys in her DMs.
Had Brittany Renner in a meeting when I was in college, I might be about $15 million more richer. Because she broke it down. The coldest line she said, I got more checks in my DMs than Nike. I said, wow. That mean they at her.
Yes.
Okay, and she's trying to tell them how this is played out. She say, it's women out there that do their homework. They know everything about y'all because you tell on yourself on the gram and on social. So they know how to go get you. And you thinking you conquering it and you ain't, because it's all a plan.
You think you run a game and they run a game on you.
She was unbelievable. And I'm hoping, and I know, a few guys learned tremendously from her speech. She brought us, she opened a lot of eyes.
Right. So what is he saying there? What did Brittany say on the show? She's talking about how women are seeing the guys in the DMs, going to their Instagrams, and then studying up on them. So these women are actively studying us to see what we're about, what our likes and dislikes are, how we move, how we maneuver, how we function, the kind of friends we have, how we spend our money. And then they're able to go and use that as a means of coming up to us and appearing a certain way and being jovial, being kind, and talking about these things over here that just happen to match with our likes. Like, this is the kind of planning that women do. We're thinking, we're thinking we're bad because we're trying to get over on like, okay, if I learn how to do a certain conversation technique, then women will like me more. Oh, that's manipulative. They're full on. If you go on, I've had women tell me like before a first date that they were already on the internet searching for me to see what I was about, what I was into. Like, that's the kind of deep level that women are going to in terms of being able to figure out how they can best either serve you or manipulate you depending on the woman that we're talking about, right? So then I want to talk about this other guy. I think his name is Trevor Bauer, all right? And so he was a guy, let me get added to the stage real quick. So he was a guy that basically was playing for the LA Dodgers, right? And then I think in 2021, he hooked up with this girl. She claimed that, I'll say, he coerced her into doing acts in the bedroom that she was not giving, she was not saying were okay, right? And so she went to court and she lied on this guy and said that he touched me in this way and did this thing and it was all horrible, this and that. And so this guy, as a result of that, he was a pitcher for the LA Dodgers right here in California, and the team dropped him because of the allegations, right? Now, I don't want to do a whole show talking about the allegations. Long story short, the case was found in his favor. He decided to sue her back. And so for like, the same thing that that Johnny Depp did for Amber Heard, you know? And so in that court case, he was found not to be liable. Her insurance company paid her $300,000. So she got the money, right? But I want to demonstrate to you guys the level of planning and detail that this girl did, because after the case was done, this guy was able to come out and show all the evidence that proved that she had already planned to get him. Let's watch this.
Victim, star pitcher for the Dodgers. A text Lindsey Hill sent to a friend before she ever even met me.
So she sent a text to her friend before she met this guy, telling to her friend what her plan was to be able to get this guy.
What should I steal? She asked another, in reference to visiting my house for the first time. The answer? Take his money. So how might that work? I'm going to his house Wednesday, she said. I already have my hooks in. You know how I roll. Then, after the first time we met, net worth is 51 mil, she said. Bitch, you better secure the bag, was the response. But how is she going to do that? Need daddy to choke me out, she said, being an absolute whore to try to get in on his 51 million.
Pause there. So this woman in these texts is saying what? She's saying, okay, how do I get this guy's money? I know what I'll do. I'll go over there. I'll make him do some rough play on me. And then later on, I can say, oh, these bruises on me. Oh my gosh, these acts that he did. And then next thing you know, she's going to get his money because she's going to sue him and try to take him for all that he's worth. Okay.
Read another text. Then after the second time we met, former Padres pitcher Jacob Nix told her, you got to get this bag. I'll give you $50,000, Lindsey replied. Her AA sponsor asked her at one point, do you feel a tiny bit guilty? Not really, she replied. Since then, her legal team has approached me multiple times about coming to a financial settlement. But as I have done since day one, I refuse to pay her even a single cent.
So again, I don't want to go all day talking about his particular case because, you know, it's alleged, even though it's over with. But the point is this, is that I want you to see this woman knew who he was based on because he had just recently signed like a $230 million contract or something like that. So she knew the money that he had. And so she researched it. She plotted out a plan to be able to get his money. Now, these examples that I'm showing are obviously like showing women in a negative light. And I don't try to highlight on the show that kind of stuff. We know it happens and know it exists. But the point is that even well-meaning women are going to be doing their research on you, which is why I tell you guys, it takes 2 to 3 months for women to solidify their feelings. They're spending that 2 to 3 months really learning all about you and learning what things they need to do to ideally keep you happy in a relationship, but in general, like keep you around and have you, you know, in their good graces and stuff like that. So I say this because, you know, just like you want women out there that are kind-hearted and loving to learn about you and what makes you tick and your ins and outs, which, by the way, most of them are going to do, as you can see here. You as a guy should not be ashamed for learning things like game, for learning the ins and outs of how to talk to women, how to text them, what kind of dates are going to make their interest raise, when and why to wait for sex to happen or how to kiss someone that day. Like all these things that I talk about, again, guys will get chastised. I've been chastised like, oh, you're teaching guys how to manipulate and blah, 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 blah. No, I'm teaching you guys game that women are already hip to, because the reality is if you're a late bloomer like me, you didn't have this game. You didn't know that saying a certain word or phrase is going to cause her panties to get wet versus other ones that are going to turn her away. You may not have known that why texting her nonstop is actually going to turn her off versus like leaving some subtle text here and there or using it only to ask for a date. Like you just don't fundamentally know these things right off the bat. And so I just don't want you to be ashamed for having to learn this stuff or have people make you feel guilty for doing that, because we all start this as beginners that we don't know nothing. At 14 and 15, we start getting our hormones and it's like, oh, we just get thrown into the deep end of the pool saying, you should know how to date now. And it's not the way it is. Women, they've been from the shallow end of the pool to the deep end over the span of their younger years. We were playing with, my nephew was playing with like Legos and Nintendo. He's not focusing at all. He's drawing pictures. He's building haunted houses. He's not focusing at all on women at all at this point in time. But my niece, who's 6 years old, is already like looking into like, the Barbies and Kens and how they play with each other and all this stuff. Like it's a different world for how we grow up. So don't feel bad if you're learning this stuff later on, and don't let anybody confuse you or trick you into thinking that you're doing a bad thing by learning how women function. That's all I'm saying. So now that I've gotten that out of the way, before we get to more of these questions, we have a quick sponsor. We'll be right back. Hey guys, yep, it's still me here. So if you have been trying to figure out the ins and outs of how to date, it can be very, very challenging, especially if you don't have the proper roadmap to be able to get there. Going from dating to getting into a relationship has its own set of problems and issues that if you're not aware of them, you can ultimately end up not being successful. And that's why I've created the Introvert Dating Success Academy. This is an academy that is designed to help you figure out the ins and outs of how to meet, greet, attract, date, land, and keep the woman of your dreams. You could have a girlfriend within the span of 3 months of meeting somebody if you knew the practical steps to take at each stage, from when you first meet the woman, how to talk to her, all the way up to how to ask her out on a date, the kind of date to take her on, how to get to that first kiss, or something more complex as to how to get in the bedroom, what to do when you're in the bedroom, and even concerning things like when you guys have your first argument, how do you deal with that? What signs can you look for that indicate how she feels about you without you having to ask her? And how can you tell when it's time for you to have the relationship conversation? Well, these are all things that are covered in the Introvert Dating Success Academy. It is a video course. It is 12 videos that are designed to walk you through that entire process, A through Z, step by step, so you can finally land the woman of your dreams. And with that, there are some pretty cool bonuses that come with that as well. Now, if you want to check that out and see what the whole program is about, you can go to introvertdatingsuccess.com and you can click on the programs tab and then click on the section that says Introvert Dating Success Academy and see everything that comes with it. But I promise you guys, this program is based on my personal success and the steps that I've used time and time again to be able to attract women, get with any kind of woman that I want to, and if I decide to, get into relationships. And I believe it can be very helpful for you as well. So go to the website, take a look at it, and I'll be happy to assist you and help you when you join the Introvert Dating Success Academy today. And we're back. All right. So we have a question in the chat. And actually, the guy that's asking this, then I actually have another question here that I believe I have in my notes for this week. So yeah. Anyway, somebody asked, okay, man, are you rapping or are you here to give advice? What's with the music? That's just background music for my commercial. I don't know what to tell you about that. Like, I have a whole album called Kevin Samuels Was Right, but that's not what I'm talking about on the show today. But go to the website and check it out. Anyway, so we have a question in the chat. And the question says, any advice for when and how to bring up whether a woman has STDs? Any advice for vasectomized men for when and under what circumstances to hook up without protection? So we'll answer the first question first. Ultimately, women are going to follow your lead on a lot of stuff in the dating relationship, including things like STDs. So that's one of those things where if you're wanting the woman, for example, to get some kind of test before you guys actually hook up, that is something that you could bring up. Maybe not necessarily on the first date, but, typically you want to bring up things as if it's like part of casual conversation, So you could be talking to a woman on a date, for example, and be like, yeah, blah, 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 this and that. Like, oh, it's like, I try to make sure that, I'm always, I try to make sure that before I get into a new relationship that, I'm over the previous relationship. I try to make sure that, I have my emotional balance is back in order, that I've really done the work. I've had time to grieve for myself. And I said, also, I make sure that I go and get a STD panel test across the board. That way my next partner knows going into whatever we do that I am assuredly safe for her. And you can say it like that because again, women are good at passive language. So when you say, I always make sure that I get my STD test before a new relationship just to make sure I'm going in safe, then that's going to relate to her. And you need to do the same exact thing. All right. So, and you can bring that up. You can say, hey, have some papers with you. Say, hey, before we do anything, just want you to know that I've had my panel of tests. And just like I said in our previous conversation, I am effectively safe. So, hey, anytime you're ready to get some stuff popping, let me see what the test looks like and we're good to go. All right. So that's one way you can try to bring that up. Like, again, don't stress over it too much. Don't make it like a majorly big deal when you're talking about it, but definitely make sure you see those papers. All right. Also, any advice for vasectomized men for when and under what circumstances to hook up without protection? Well, honestly, just because you have a vasectomy, that does not protect you from like STDs and various things. So what I would say is that ideally, you'd wait to do that for somebody that you really see a strong connection with, to where you could legitimately see you going the long haul with this person. Because we don't want you to have the vasectomy and then just be out there like, I'm going to just bang everybody with nothing. Like, you still got to be selective in that. So I would say wear a condom the first many times you do it. Maybe wait like 6 months or so, at which point, ideally, you'll feel like you're legitimately going somewhere with this person. You seem like they have a good head on their shoulders. You can legitimately see that this person playing for the long haul. And then you can make that decision with her, say, hey, so like, I can't get you pregnant, and I think we have a really good thing going. Like, how would you feel about us not using protection that night? And then again, even with that doesn't mean that she doesn't have anything and that she can give it to you. All right. So that's at your discretion, but that's how I would go about that. So hopefully, God, this helps you out. All right, let's answer another question that I got this past week. Let's see if this one says. Okay, so this guy had a question and he said, I've been dating this woman for about 5 weeks, 6 dates. I don't overtext or call her in any simpy way. Every date has had strong chemistry. Kissed on date 2, hooked up, everything except for sex the last 3 dates. She said she wanted to, but I said, I don't want to push it on her, so I'm playing the slow game. We'll get back to that in a minute because I got a lot to say about that. Anyway, he says, last week, in the midst of a convo about modern dating and how many games are involved, I said, I prefer being straightforward and honest, and then said, quote, I like you because you're a cool person. She said, thank you, and whatnot, and the convo switched casually to something else. Thought nothing of it. For those of you that watch my show, you know where this is going next, right? Like he said the thing about, I like you because you're a cool person. He said he put his feelings out there because he doesn't want to play games. You know where this is going, right? Like, I'll just give you a minute. Where could this possibly go next in the story? Let's find out. Now it's been a week and she has dry text, taking a whole day to respond, if at all. Don't know if it's some kind of pullback test thing or if I just messed up because I let those words slip out of my mouth. Like, I don't get it. I didn't say, please be my girlfriend, you're the one. I just said what felt natural given the convo. I don't want to assume nothing, but it just feels like I've kept it smooth and done everything right, yet the result is still this weird energy. It's making me less attracted to her because she said she isn't into the whole dating games thing, but here she is doing it. Oh, my friend, you fell for the trap. You fell for listening to words women were saying and believing that they meant the things they were saying. Oh, we've all been there. I've been there. I get it. So, but let's go back. Let's go backtrack a bit, okay? So to start off with, the whole, he kissed on 2 dates, hooked up and everything except for sex. And then it said, very important, right? He says, she said she wanted to, but I said, I don't want to push it on you. Now, this is an example of guys being superheroes in their head in a situation that doesn't require them to be a superhero and doesn't need saving. Because Here's the problem, right? I've talked about patterns on the show quite a few times now. As a nice guy, you're in the pattern oftentimes of trying to prove that you're not like every other guy out there. And so what that means is you've developed some patterns of rejecting things that would indicate that you're now turning into the kind of guy you're trying not to be. And a big one of those involves sex. And I used to be the same way. I'd have girls that would legitimately come over to my place and be like, looking a certain way, smelling a certain way, touching on me a certain way. And I just thought, oh, no. I can't have sex with them yet because I don't want to be that guy. What if I have sex with them and then I don't like them anymore and I leave? Like, I don't want to hurt their feelings. So you know what? I'm going to say no to sex all the time. And so that's what this guy did, is that at the point where she said, hey, I actually want to do some stuff. What's his response in his head? I got to be a superhero. I can't be like those other guys. So I'm going to, for her own good, not have sex with her. And I get why guys do it, because realistically, you don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be the guy, you guys have a hookup and then you find out something on like date 3 and you want to get away from her now. But all of a sudden, if you do that, you're like the bad guy. Guys, I need you to get out of your head that these women need you to save them from things that they themselves are not requesting you to save them from. She said in the situation that she was actually down for the hookup. At that point, if you're wanting to hook up, it's different if like you're like, you as the guy want to wait until you're in a relationship to do some stuff. But if you're like, she wants to hook up and you're thinking, and you want to hook up, you trying to reject her for her own good is not a good idea, because that makes a woman feel like you're not hearing her. If she's saying, hey, let's hook up, be like, no, I can't do it because I know what you truly need. You need me to not hook up with you right now. Does that make a woman feel heard and understood? Or does that make her feel like it's going to always be your way or the highway? And I know as a guy, I said before, you're going to take the lead on certain things, but this is a situation where you're trying to emphatically tell her, no, having sex right now is not good for you. And she knows in the moment if she wants it or not. So for you to come by and say that that's not a thing that you want right now, that's already bad vibes on her part, and you're already starting to lose her at that point, right? So then, of course, we get into the obvious part where he's like, and this is another thing guys do, right? So in trying to be a nice guy, right? He's trying to tell her, you know what? I'm not a guy that plays games. I like to tell it how it is. I don't want you to be ambivalent or have any questionings about how I feel about you or what's in the process. You know what? As proof of a guy that's not playing games, I'm going to tell you how I feel, because only a guy that's playing games would hide his feelings. And that's the lie that we tell ourselves, guys, to convince ourselves that it's perfectly okay to now tell her how we feel about things. And then we tell ourselves, and she's going to like it because I just gave this whole speech about how I'm not trying to play games. So when I tell her that I feel a certain way, she's going to be okay with it because she's going to realize that what I said was true. I'm not playing games because I'm telling her how I feel. And what have I told you time and time again? Women do not care how you feel. Women care how they feel. They care about where their feelings are about you during this dating process. So you verbalizing your feelings, one, they don't care. That would be like a woman telling you, well, I have a master's degree and I make $1 million a year. As a guy, we know your degree doesn't help me and you're not sharing the money with me. Why do I care? And yet women that are in their masculine frame will be trying to spit this out all the time and then wonder, but why don't guys like me? I make a lot of money. I have a whole lot of degrees. That's the same way that women feel when we try to tell them our feelings. It's like, but what do your feelings have to do with how I feel about you? And so this is why you don't go around spouting your feelings. The other reason you don't is because, and I've said it before, when you say things, right? The reason women talk in passive language is because women feel things 2 to 3 times more than expected when you say something to them directly. So as a guy, you're thinking, if I just say, I think you're a cool person, you're thinking she's going to take it that same way. Oh, he just thinks I'm a cool person. No. What she's taking it is as, I have very, very high feelings for you. I'm already starting to fall in love with you, and I can see a long-term relationship. And if she's not there, you lose out, which is why you do not verbalize how you feel about a woman during the time that you're dating her. At the point that she comes to you and asks you, hey, so what are we? Can I be your girlfriend? Then you can say, you know what? I'd love to be your boyfriend because you know what? I think we got a great thing going on. And even then, even when you're complimenting her or trying to tell her that you care for her, the language you use should be dampened down. Why? Because as the guy, your best mode of operandi for showing feelings is through action, not through words. Women do words well, men do actions well, and that's how the other sex best takes in how we feel. So yes, you want a woman to tell you how she feels about you, because as guys, we need that direct, literal verbiage. I need her to say, hey, I care for you, I love you, yada, 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 because if we don't see the action of it, we're like, what's going on? But women don't need to hear that from you. Women, there are so many women that complain about, my guy's overly emotional, he's always telling his feelings and blah, 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 because women don't really want that. Women ultimately want a guy that they can look at like The Rock, that he's stoic, that he has a good head on his shoulders, that he's emotionally stable. You verbalizing your feelings, I'm sorry, guys, I know you want to do it, but if you're going to do it, don't do it during the dating phase. Just I keep saying it, so I'm going to keep saying it time and time again. Do not tell your feelings to women during the dating phase. Show them how you feel through actions, through taking them on dates, through giving them good hookups. They will get the idea that you care about them. And at the point where they're like, but I need to hear blah, 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 they'll come to you and ask you, what are we? What's going on? Are we in a relationship? Are you seeing other people? And those answers that they get from that will let them know how much you care about them, all right? But yes, so you can't use this trick of, well, but I'm trying to be honest. I'm not trying to play games. It's not playing games just because you don't tell a woman verbally how you feel, because you're still doing actions that indicate that, all right? So hopefully this helps you out. All right, so now I want to get on to the second segment, which is, so I'm going to talk about why it is that as guys, we only tend to take women seriously when they're yelling at us. You know, I've tried to say on the show before that, let's say you're dating a woman or you're in a relationship with a woman, right? And she wants you to take out the trash. And she just comes to you and says, hey, babe, you know, oh, I noticed the trash is still in the garbage can. Like, what's up with that? Do. Well, because she's saying it in such a soft tone, you may think like, I'll just get to it whenever. She mentioned it to me, but she doesn't seem like she's really that pressed about it. So it's no big deal. And then fast forward to like, she's wanting to break up with you and you're like, what's going on? And the first thing she says is, well, I mean, for one thing, you never take out the trash. Like I keep trying to tell you to take out the trash and you never do it. And at that point, you're like, oh, she must have been really serious about that trash thing. But why didn't I feel that when she was asking me in the moment? And so I saw a TikTok video today that actually really well illustrates, and I never thought about this guy's point when he made it, but it really illustrates why it is that as guys, oftentimes we don't take things super seriously when women aren't yelling it at us, even though, as I've said before, they actually mean that crap, right? So let's go ahead and add that to the stage here real quick.
Which is every male that I knew.
Right back here. Okay,
you just said something really brilliant. Something that's super common in my comment section is women will explain that they have talked to their partners about their needs and about their marriage for years and years and years. And it's not until they threaten divorce or actually get separated that their partners start to work on it. And
oh, by the way, these two are actually, they were married and they got divorced. And then afterwards went to therapy, did the work. So they're buddy now. And so they have these real conversations about like, this is what happened. This is how I was. This is the way that this guy was in his marriage. And a lot of times he was like saying no to his wife or not really listening to her. And so she got him on TikTok to talk about it. Okay.
I mentioned that to you and you said something that's totally brilliant.
Yeah, I know why that is. That's because as boys, we were socialized that unless you're being yelled at, it's not serious. So like from our dads, from coaches, every male that I knew, when they had a serious point, they yelled it at me. It was never a talk. It was never gentle. So I knew to take something seriously when I was being scolded, reprimanded, chastised, embarrassed.
Yeah, I never thought about that. I don't think, like in a lot of the settings,
honestly, I hadn't thought about it either.
I grew up in as like socialized as a woman, like even our coaches, like some of them yelled at us, but most of them didn't. Like we were instructed, we were guided. But he talked a lot about how like in male spaces, being raised, like you're screamed at, you're yelled at, you're hazed. And so you're kind of trained to respond to like crisis.
Everything else is brainstorming. Everything else is an idea. Like it's sad, super sad.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I never thought about that. I never thought about the fact that in male spaces, because we're being very direct, we're trying to get things done, there's no room or time to like go around a person, right? That as a result of that we grow up in a world where other men are yelling at us which allows us to know the severity of the situation. Think about like karate instructors. They're like, ha, punch here, do this, ha. I was in Boy Scouts. There'll be times where it's like, you're trying to climb a rope. Hey, climb that rope now. Do this, ha. I was in ROTC in college. Hey, march left, march, move that over there, push that there. It's always yelling, right? But as men, we're like, okay, if they're yelling, they must be super serious because there's no other reason to yell unless something is absolutely needing to be done right now, right? But we forget that in the world of women, they got a whole different version of socialization going on. So in the world of women, because they're trying to build a community, like it's very circular, everybody's the same, then in terms of passing off information, again, they're already speaking with passive language, but also they're going to have more of a nicety to their language. That's why traditionally, like let's say two women are friends and then like one of the friends does something wrong to the other friend, the first friend can say, hey, is everything okay between us? And the second one will say, oh, no, I'm fine. And she'll know, the first friend will know, oh, something's not fine. What did I do? Well, just because, I didn't want to bring it up, but just, the other day you had said this thing and I didn't really, and it's all this very soft, very lingerie language that women do amongst each other, right? So then we get into relationships, and both sexes are trying to use the ways in which they communicate with their own sex on this other person. Now, women's way is to be very, very gentle. Hey, so, I noticed the trash is over there. Like, I don't want to be a bother, but I'd love for you to take it out. And again, as guys, we're thinking, I don't hear her yelling. I don't hear the urgency in her voice. So you know what? I'll delay it a little bit. And then you got to think about like how many times guys do that. How many times has your woman said, for example, hey, babe, you said you're going to get the car washed this week. When is it going to happen? Or, hey, babe, I know this bill over here still hasn't been paid. I just want to know, like, what's up with that? What's the update? Blah, blah, blah. And they're coming to us because they're being very gentle. They're using the communication skills that they've learned amongst other women and trying to use it on us. And our response is, but she's not yelling, and therefore it must not be serious. Now, the irony is that when women are trying to be direct and are trying to yell, which she brings up in another video, the end result is we start saying, oh, why are you so hurt? Or why are you being a bee to me? Like, what's going on? So women lose either way, right? Either if they try to be direct, they're seen as, but if they're soft talking, we as guys don't take it super seriously. And we say they're not serious about it until they're either yelling at us or until they're threatening a breakup, at which point now they're yelling, well, you never do this and blah, blah, blah. And now in our heads are like, oh, she was serious. I get that now because she's yelling. But guys, this is why as men, it's very important for you to study up on how women talk and communicate and learn that the ways in which they're communicating are the strongest forms of communication they can possibly give in the hopes of getting the things that they want. So your woman comes to you, just keep this in your head from now on, guys, right? You're dating a woman. If she comes to you with any kind of request, whether it's like, hey, babe, so I noticed we haven't had a date night in a while, or hey, babe, so I noticed your shoes are still on the floor, understand it's already taking her a lot of gravitas to be able to even voice that these things are things that she needs to be done or that are annoying her. When she says these things, again, we go back to when women say things or hear things, they mean it 3 times more. So when she's saying, hey, babe, could you, I noticed your shoes are still on the ground. What you should take that as from now on is, dude, your freaking shoes are still on the ground. Can you please get them off the freaking ground? Now, she's not going to say it like that, but you need to start interpreting it like that, because if you're able to interpret her soft language as serious requests, you will find that a lot of the breakups you have won't happen. Like, there are guys that will go from like, I was dating this girl and everything seemed great, and then all of a sudden she broke up with me and she said there was a list of problems that I didn't know about. But didn't she kind of voice them? And didn't she kind of tell you on and off like these things were slightly annoying her? I can tell you now, her saying that they slightly annoyed her, they annoyed the crap out of her, all right? And she didn't want to be overly aggressive or seem like a B word, all this other stuff. So she was trying to get it out the best way she can. And some guys take advantage. Some guys like, okay, if she's not yelling, I know she probably means it, but since she's not saying it, I'm going to just do what I want to do. You're going to lose your woman. Like, of the two of you, if you're thinking you want to be able to be direct and yell and she wants to be soft and whatever, I got news for you. Women that are kind and nice and caring, they're only going to deal with your yelling for so long before it's like, this dude just doesn't get it. I'm out of here, right? So you have to learn to be able to interpret her soft language and then proceed with the request that she's making, knowing that she seriously means that. But in this world, unfortunately, she cannot do that without looking a certain way. And she's going to try to communicate with you, her partner, as best as she possibly can. Just know going forward again, if she's saying it, she means that to the nth degree. And you best to take out that trash and move your shoes, before you end up losing the girl over some stuff that you didn't think was so serious in the first place. So I just wanted to put that out there for you guys. All right. All right. So we're going to answer one more question and then we'll get to the main event. So let's see what we got here. This guy said, okay. So we got a comment from a guy this past week, and his comment was this. He says, she had asked me to go on our second date. We had a nice time, and at the end of our date, I took her back to my place. We were sitting on my couch talking, and I was playing with her long, beautiful, curly hair, stroking her soft cheeks, smiling and looking into her pretty eyes. She was smiling also. I then said, quote, I want to kiss you. When all of a sudden, she stood up and announced in an upset tone, I'm leaving. I was shocked. I said, okay. Days later, I asked her out again, but she declined. I never saw her again. This happened years ago, and I don't understand what went wrong. Well, guy, let me help you out here, okay? So let's go through like the obvious thing first, which is like, even though in this day and age, the whole consent thing is definitely a subject for discussion, the reality is when you're doing most moves, women want you to kind of feel your way into doing these moves. They don't want you to announce them. They don't want you to ask for permission. They just want you to fill out the scenario. Now, is that fair? Admittedly, no. It'd be nice if it's a guy who can say, hey, I'm feeling things right now, and I think I want to kiss you. Is that cool? But sad to say, even in 2023, that still takes away some of the romance for women. And so that's one of those things where you kind of got to feel that out, because I found it in my practice, just in life, that like going for a kiss and not getting it, or going for a kiss and getting it, and then her saying like, oh, I wasn't ready for that, that still plays a lot better than you directly asking for a kiss. All right. So I want to put that out there, because most guys, if they've been through the situation and they're wondering what's going on, unfortunately, you asking for a kiss will typically be seen as like beta behavior, okay? But even with that said, the reality is also some women don't mind if you ask them. Some women find it romantic if you ask them. And so you have to look at, ultimately, sometimes either women are just going to stop liking you altogether, or they're going to find an excuse to not like you, or they have some kind of hang up in their head about some stuff that you're not aware of, and they're just like, oh my God, I'm out. The reality is that sometimes women's emotions for you turn at the drop of a hat, and that is not something that you can fight. Like, you could be thinking everything's going great, and then, I've been on dates where like, I think things are going good, and then I say like one joke that to me is like not off color, no cursing, not insulting anybody, but it could just be corny as heck, and then next thing you know, they're like, I'm turned off, and you're like, what? It was just one joke. And so, and that is part of the dating game. Like, the reality is women's emotions are in ebbs and flows, and so one minute she could be feeling you and feeling great, the next thing you ask her to kiss her, and all of a sudden she's like, a kiss. But the good news is that she's gone, because if she's giving you that strong of a reaction from you simply trying to kiss her, I got news for you, guy. Things are going to only get a lot worse. And this is what I want to stress to you guys, is that not every woman out there is going to be for you, and not every woman out there is going to be a great person to date. And sometimes they will reject themselves. Let them do that, because they are saving you time, energy, headaches, and most importantly, money. You don't want women like this that stay around and be like, oh, you disgust me, I'm going to get up, but I'll see you next week for that date. Like, the fact that you even asked her out again, like, after that, I'd have been like, oh, she's way out. Like, I'm not going to try to spend any kind of money now to convince her that she needs to kiss me or date me or like me. If she's already showing signs that indicate that she's not about that life, I'll take it personally for like a day and then go back out there and meet somebody new. It really is that simple, So hopefully, guy, that helps you out. So before we get into the show, I'm going to get some tea, because I can already feel that I'm going to have a hard time talking. So I'm going to get some tea, and we'll be right back. Hey guys, Harry Wilmington here. And I just want to tell you really quickly about some of the awesome eBooks that I have available at the website. So to start off with, we have my brand new book, Stop Losing Women, which is based off of my previous podcast. And it's over 284 pages of life-changing advice for your dating life. You're going to discover in the span of these pages the ins and outs of how to become more confident, the do's and don'ts of how to attract women, how to pace yourself during the dating process, and ultimately what it truly takes for you to be a more confident dater, so that way you can get out there, attract women, and more importantly, stop losing women, okay? The other ebook that I have on my website is called No Girls For You, The Ultimate Guide to Losing the Girl of Your Dreams. This is the first book that I ever wrote, and simply put, It is a 12-chapter masterpiece that is designed to, in a very funny way, mind you, guide you through the ins and outs of why all the things you're trying to do right now to attract women can actually cause you to lose them. I mean, things like being the nice guy, overextending yourself, getting too many gifts, too many compliments, and a variety of other things that you may think as a guy I should be doing. This funny book's going to help you figure out once for all why you should not do those things and how to better yourself instead. So be sure to check that book out as well. The other book that's been very popular at my website is called Texting Like a Boss. This is where, for all you guys out there that have problems texting women or don't understand why she starts off so chummy in the terms of the texting things, and then she starts to kind of go away and you can't figure out what's going on or why, or you're not an efficient enough texter to be able to actually get dates by way of texting. Well, this book is going to give you 21 do's and don'ts that are tried, true, and tested, so that way you can get the results that you want with women when you're texting them, and ultimately not do the wrong things that are going to cause her to eventually ghost you in the texting realm. All right, so check that book out at the website. Lastly, my other popular book that I have there is called 10 Steps to Winning Back Your Ex, the step-by-step, no-nonsense guide to reconnecting with an old flame, regardless of who ended the relationship. And so for you guys that are like, hey, I think I lost a great one and she left me and I want to get her back, or you might have been the guy that's like, hey, I dumped her and then I realized I made a mistake and I want to get her back. Well, this book covers both of those scenarios in a very detailed step-by-step way that is designed to allow you to figure out what you did wrong, how you can show up better, and the sequence of events you need to go through in order to effectively win back the woman that you are no longer with. So if these things sound like things that'll be helpful to you, then definitely go to introvertdatingsuccess.com, click on the products tab, where you can find a summary of all these books as well as my various programs, and they will be more than happy in helping you figure out whatever part of the dating journey you're on, so that way you will not be confused and you will ultimately be able to have the dating life that you want. So check those out at the website today. All right, guys, it is time for the main event for today. Today, we are talking about how to prove you're not just there for sex so you can continue to get sex. So here's the thing, guys. There's going to become a point in your dating journey. If you become good at being able to date women and talk to them and attract them, there's going to come a point where you're going to be able to hook up with girls really, really fast. I'm talking like first date, second date, third date. It's going to happen, right? Now, early on in most women's dating journey, what typically happens is that the men that they hook up with become attached way too soon. And then next thing the girl knows, she's feeling kind of weird. Like, yeah, they had a hookup, but now because they had a hookup, the guy's assuming that they must be in a relationship. She gets freaked out. She gets scared away. And then she loses the guy, right? But if you've been actively studying my stuff or other people's stuff, you know that women take 2 to 3 months to solidify their feelings. So what that means is that you're not going to let a hookup with a woman make you think that you're now at a relationship level. You're going to be thinking, okay, the hookup was just part of the experience of getting to know her, and I still have to do my due diligence. I still have to date her, take her out, but like, this is good, we're hooking up, but like, I can't assume that I'm in a relationship right away, right? That's the good part. But here's the interesting thing, right? Is that because women are used to guys trying to be clingy to them, when you're not trying to suddenly be overly clingy or overly text them after a hookup, they're going to start thinking in their head, that's interesting. He's not like the other guys in that he's not trying to get me into a relationship right away. Interesting. But now I'm not used to this, and it feels kind of weird. Because most guys are wanting a relationship right away. This guy doesn't. But shouldn't he want a relationship? Wait a minute. If he's not asking for a relationship right now, could this possibly mean that the only reason that he's continuing to see me is because he wants to hook up? Now, I know it's a weird logical thought to get to, right? But think about it. If women are used to having guys try to get them into a relationship after 1 or 2 hookups and you don't, then the logical emotional conclusion she's coming to is that you must just be there for the hookup, right? And so you might be hooking up with a girl and you're like mid-stroke, you're midway, she's on top of you, and she might just suddenly stop and be like, wait a minute, I have a question for you. Like, is this just about the hookup? Are we just doing this so you can have sex with me? Like, do you actually care about me? Like, whatever, right? And I know this because what I'm describing to you right now has actually happened to me before, where I've literally like been in the midst of stuff and the woman will just be like, after like 2 or 3 hookups, hey, wait a minute, like, Like, are you just in this for the hookup? Like, what's going on? Now, a inexperienced guy would try to do what most guys do, which is either backpedal or try to overly convince this woman that they're not about the hookup life. Oh, no, that wouldn't be me. I'm not just in the hookup. And then they shoot themselves in the foot, because I've said time and time again that women don't need you to hear how you emotionally feel about them. But what happens when guys get asked this question is they think, okay, in order to prove to her that I'm not just in this for the sex, I now have to overly verbalize how much I care about her and feel about her, even if it's only been like 1 or 2 hookups, which accounts to like maybe 4 or 5 dates at most. So the guy will go, oh, no, it's not like that. I really care for you. And not that I already feel myself falling in love with you and I can see a future with you, blah, 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 thinking that that's what she wants to hear in order to go through with the hookup. And these guys, if they're anything like me, when they do that, the result typically is they try to hit up the girl a week or so later for another date, and suddenly she's no longer interested. But why is that? Why is the woman pulling away when you've proven to her that you're not in this just for the hookup? Well, a few reasons. For one, she doesn't believe you. And number 2 is because she did not ask that question as a way of trying to get you to like out yourself and your feelings for her. All right. She, in her head, was just like, I feel as though I could potentially be getting used right now, and I just don't want that to be a thing that's happening. So I'm trying to ask this guy if he's in it for this, because I just need some assurance that even if we're just in the dating realm of things, that he's seeing me as a potential viable candidate for a long-term relationship and not just for these short-term hookups or situationships, right? So with that said, here's the thing, guy, is that ultimately, as a man, it is your job to understand, again, how women are going to feel about things, and then understand the most powerful tool that you have in your arsenal in order to turn this around. Because it's not about having to vocalize how you feel about her or trying to overly convince her that that's not what you're about, right? But what it is about you doing certain actions that will, A, unequivocally make her realize that it's not just about sex, and B, will allow her to get back on the train of wanting to continue to give you hookups, all right? And with that said, I'm bringing back an old segment and an old friend to help us out.
Kevin Samuels was right. Kevin Samuels was right. Kevin Samuels was right.
Yes, RIP to the late and great Kevin Samuels, but he had a TikTok I saw this week that I think really, really better puts into frame how you as a guy need to be showing up at all times when it comes to women and hooking up with them. Let's listen to the late, great Kevin Samuels talk about it.
In order to be a high-value man, you must exercise sexual discipline. Sexual discipline is one of the most critical areas to where men who could be high value have ruined themselves. What does that mean? You got kids everywhere. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kids by 4 women. You're not high value. Oh, we're going there tonight. That's why I say people who are music, athletics, or entertainment are not automatically put in a high value category, because their money comes differently, number 1, and number 2, because so many of them tend to lack sexual discipline.
That's right. Kevin Samuels is absolutely right. The biggest thing that you can do in order to have more control in your relationships and to be able to show women that you are not fazed by them is to have sexual discipline. Thank you, Mr. Samuels. We miss you greatly. So here's the thing, guy, is that you need to show women that your level of sexual discipline is high enough and better than hers to where sex being on the table does not faze you, whether it's there or not. And the easiest way that you can do that, quite honestly, is to preemptively take away your sexual attention. And what do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to go into 3 different ways that you can do this. But here's the thing, guy. You got to understand that ultimately, the reason that taking away your sexual attention works is because women, as part of their ego, need to feel as though they are needed by men, and that men desire them and their beauty and their sexuality, right? And so the conundrum that women are going to have is this, is that they're telling you, hey, are you just using me for this hookup? I don't want this to just be about sex, right? But when you remove sexual attention from the table, now there's a problem. The problem is, 1, she's not getting hooked up anymore, which if it was really good, she's like, what the heck's going on? But also is that by you taking away your sexual attention, you're actually taking away attention to her beauty, attention to her sexuality that she needs in order to fully feel like a feminine woman, in order to feel desired. So you're thinking she wants sex completely off the table, but she does not. Because if sex is completely off the table, how is she going to know from you that you desire her in that way physically? All right. So this isn't about her trying to get rid of having sex with you, but it is about trying to feel more assured that that's not all that she's being used for. All right. So this is why doing a takeaway of your sexual attention is such a powerful move, because it unequivocally says to a woman, A, you're in control of your sexual urges, and at B, if not her, possibly somebody else. All right. So with that said, how do you do that? How do you take away your sexual attention in order for her to get back on the track? Because you're thinking, if you're a good guy, you're thinking sex can be a part of us getting to know each other. This isn't about me trying to just be about sex. But again, a woman's, you could try to argue with a woman all day. Oh no, it's not about that, this and that. All she's going to think is like, yeah, so all the guys say in order to try to get in my pants. You're verbalizing, it's not about that for you. You have these feelings, yada, yada, yada. How many times has the guy told me that and I fell for it and then he was just about that? Not going to work, right? So I always tell you, you cannot try to argue or talk a woman out of her feeling that way, right? So with that said, here are the actions, though, that you can do as a means of sexual takeaway that will get her back to being like, okay, my bad, let's do the thing, right? Here we go. So the first one is tell her that you can outweight her. For example, let's say she says, oh, I like to typically wait for like, at least a month or so before I hook up with a guy. Do not panic. Do not be like, oh, a month, oh my God, blah, 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 blah. Again, you need to show her that you have sexual discipline and that you're indifferent to what she wants in terms of like the time frame, right? So if she says to you, I think we should wait a month, you come back with, well, I mean, we could wait 2 months if you want, or 3 months. Like, I don't care. I can outwait you. Now, what's interesting is I've actually done this before, where like a woman was like, on our second date, she's like, oh, just just because you're coming to my apartment doesn't mean we're going to do things. And my response is like, I was a virgin since I was 23. Like, and you were a virgin to when? Like 17? Like, I can outweight you. I can outweight you, and it is not a problem. And what I found that did is that we went to her place, we did nothing. Third date, got a little more frisky, blah, blah. By the fifth date, hooking up. Why? Because I legitimately showed her like, hey, I'm not going to push the agenda. Like, I can outweight you. So if you're feeling though you need like a month or two, I need 3 months. What's that? And you'll find that women really do tell themselves. When you tell them some crap like that, they tell themselves, because I've literally had women be like, no, well, I mean, we could, so your timeline is arbitrary is what you're saying. That's interesting. So how about we just go with like, when we both feel like we want to do that thing, then we can just do it. But the point is like, I'll put out there that I can outweight them, because I'm going to show them early on that I have enough discipline to wait however long it's going to take for her to feel comfortable. So that's the first way. The second way to do a sexual takeaway is that, let's say you've already been hooking up with the girl, right? Third time hooking up, midway through, she's like, oh, I don't know if we should keep doing this, or blah, 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 blah. I've literally told women to their face. I've said, well, if you want, we can just stop hooking up. Like, no, we can still date and still go out and do whatever, but like, we just take sex off the table for now. Like, we just don't have to do it. Now, again, I'm not saying I don't want sex from her, but what I am proposing to her is that I am now willing right now to not do this thing that we're currently doing, as a means of showing you that I don't actually need it to still try to get to know you. And that's really what women are actually trying to feel for, is that you're trying to get to know her. Now, again, in my head, if sex just happens to be a part of that, that's absolutely fantastic. But I also tell women, hey, you know what? If it's making you feel kind of weird, or if you're questioning the fact that I'm here to see you and not just for the hookup, let's take it off the table. Again, the reaction I've gotten from women when I've said, let's just stop hooking up. Oh no, okay, we don't have to go that far. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that you were just, why? Because all the other guys who would have told that to would have been like, oh, why are we going to stop sex? But you're teasing me and you're playing games, blah, 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 blah. I don't take it as the game. I know that women's emotions are in ebb and flows. And then so in this moment, she was feeling as though maybe I was using her for sex. She doesn't know me that well. Admittedly, it's been like 3 or 4 dates. So how could she know what this really is all about? And so she might have had a moment of insecurity. I understand that. So let me just take that insecurity away. Boom, not there anymore. All of a sudden, now it's instead of like me forcing her to do this thing or feeling like she's obligated to because we're dating, now it's like, oh, it goes back to being her choice. And most of the time, if you're giving it to a woman good, her choice is going to be, I actually want to do that thing. I just wanted to make sure you weren't. So yeah, that's the second move, is that you can literally just, in the midst of hooking up, just be like, or she's talking to you one day at a restaurant. So, I just want to know if we're just doing this to be hookup pals or whatever this is and that. Again, don't go trying to spout feelings. Don't go try to be like, oh, I love you. Just be like, well, let's just take it off the table. And say it with a serious, straight face. And you should actually mean that crap, because again, you should be doing your due diligence anyway, but you should be legitimately getting to know her in various other ways. So again, if the hooking up thing becomes an issue for her, take it off the table. We can keep dating just like we know to hook up. And then watch her like jump your bones so hard later on. Be like, I just changed my mind. Do. Anyway, that's the second way. The third way to do the sexual takeaway is this. If she starts saying she wants to stop, just stop. This goes from the making out phase all the way to the hookup phase. So for example, let's say you guys are on the couch and you're like in the throes of passion. You're making out with her. It's feeling good. You start to put your hand down her, like take it off her shirt. That starts to feel good to her. And then you try to go for like some of the deeper areas. And she's like, no. I think we should stop. This is the move, guys. All right. So you're on the couch, you're making out. She's like, I think we should stop. Be like, okay, click, right to the TV. Just like an instant stop, an instant pause, because she's not used to any guy being able to legitimately stop himself when he's in the throes of passion. I don't care if she's on top of you grinding, she's taking off her pants, all of a sudden you're about to go in, she's like, oh no, I think we should wait. You, okay, back to the TV. That is such a powerful move that shows off to women that you are in total control of your sexual urges, and that her being flippy-floppy isn't going to throw you off your game. And that move is so powerful to women that they almost don't know what to do with themselves. It's just like, he was just able to stop, like, oh my God, like maybe he's not just all about sex. Maybe he legitimately wants to be, like, it's amazing what it'll do, right? So all this to say this, guys, is that when women are coming to you and you're dating them and they're saying things like, they're insecure in the moment. They're thinking like, he might be using me. And so I gotta know what's just up. And she's like, well, I don't know if like, are you just blah, 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 blah. Just remove all of her doubts right away. Show her that you are sexually disciplined, and show her that, it's going to be, when you first try this, it's going to be hard. You have to have in your head, there's a chance here that I'm going to say, let's not do some stuff. And she's not going to want to do anything. And that could happen. And it's in her right. Hey, if she decides last minute for whatever reason that the situation is just not gelling with her and she's not feeling it in the moment, she has every right to say, you know what? I know I was want to do stuff, but I just don't feel it. And most girls will be like, I'm just so sorry. You gotta be like, no, I'm not sorry. Hey, get some popcorn, let's watch some TV. Like it is what it is. Hey, maybe next time, maybe not. Either way, I'm just here to have a good time. I'm here to get to know you in whatever capacity that means. If we hook up in the process of that, fantastic. If we don't, you got some TV and some food, fantastic. But you can't let it look like it bothers you. That's the main thing, is that women will throw this out there sometimes because they're legitimately insecure. Sometimes it's a test, because again, women go through a lot of crap when they're dating. I know there's a lot of content out there today talking about, oh, women are crap, this and that, but women across the board have a legitimate reason to be slightly questioning of guys, because they've had guys that have used them for sex before, guys that have used them for money, you guys that have, taken their emotions for granted, all this other stuff, right? So if she starts dating you and you're new stimuli, you're an actual legitimately nice guy who she happens to hook up with, and she's thinking, he's nice to me and he's hooking up with me and the hookup's good, like, I don't want to risk this. I need to know now if this is just about sex or this and that. And she starts throwing those questions out. Understand, women have been through a lot of crap. So some women are going to just legitimately ask you that. Some of them are going to test you to see how you're going to react, because most guys, when they try to stop sex, are going to be a-holes about it and be like, oh, how dare you play games? So if she does that to you and your simple response is like, okay, TV, okay, whatever. Like, that's going to be a better response. And it's more likely to get her out of her head and allow her to then continue with the hookup. It's a weird trick. I get it. But again, I've tried this before. Trust me. If you're talking to a woman and she's like, I don't think we should do some stuff, and you pull away that sexual attention, that's basically putting you in control of when this is going to happen. And it's also telling her, but I don't need this to still get to know you. And sometimes that's all the proof that women actually need in order to continue with the hookup, So hopefully, guys, this helps you guys out. All right, we got some comments in the chat. Love some comments in the chat. Let me get a little drink here. All right. So we got a couple comments here from a guy. He says, if you have several options, why wait? Should you let her know you have low tolerance for games and we'll move on. And then the other question he says is, if she has all these rules, it's a sign of low interest. She will happily break rules for a guy she wants, even the first night. Well, again, so I'll answer the first thing first. So if you have several options, why wait? Well, the idea is you have options so that way you're not making any one of those particular women early on in the process be your one itis, i.e. the one that you just put all your hopes and dreams on. Because the reality is, in the beginning of dating, you should not have anybody that is high on your pedestal. You don't actually know them. You might have a couple of good conversations with them on a couple of dates and might even have a few hookups, but that does not mean that you legitimately know them yet. You should do your due diligence during those 2 or 3 months to ask the right questions of each of the women that you're dating to be able to narrow down which one is going to effectively work for you. All right. He said, should you let her know you have low tolerance for games? No. And here's why. Because the guys have this thing, right? It's the same way as women saying, so you're not going to just have sex and leave me, are you? And then the guy hooks up with her, and then they go on a third date. She acts all weird, and then she bails. Oh, he said he wasn't going to leave me and have sex with me and leave, blah, blah. He's playing games. The reality is that, most women aren't actually trying to play games. What most of the time is happening is that guys are going out there, and initially they're doing the right stuff, and then they do the wrong stuff, and the women pull away from them, and then the guys think she's playing games because on the first date she said, oh, I can see myself with you. And then by date 3, she's ghosting. Oh, she said she could see herself with it, and now she's pulling away. She's playing games. I typically find it's because the dude starts doing stuff wrong. So, and even the girls that are typically playing games, those girls don't typically last that long. They're going to go away of their own accord. But more often than not, I say to guys, look at what you're doing during the dating process. Because it's one thing if you go out with one girl and she's, quote, playing games with you. If you go out with 5 or 6 girls and they all leave you, they weren't all playing games. You were effectively doing something the wrong way, and you got to figure out what that is, what that pattern is, what those actions are you're doing that are causing women to head for the hills after 1 or 2 dates. Perfect example, a lot of guys aren't aware that they're texting too much. So after 1 or 2 dates, they can't understand why the girl's starting to suddenly pull off, and it's because you text all the time, and women don't like that across the board. But if you're just going to be she's playing games, she stopped texting me. Well, dude, 5 girls left you because you were texting too much. It's not them, it's your texting. So you got to look at that kind of stuff and figure it out, right? That's the first thing. Second comment, if she has all these rules, it's a sign of low interest. She will happily break rules for a guy that she wants, even the first night. This goes back to how women are emotionally feeling about things, right? Because to your point, let's say woman has a rule. She has a rule. She dates guys that are only 6 foot or higher, right? That's her across the board rule. And then she meets a guy that's 5'10", but he's got a good personality, makes her feel things, yada, yada, yada. They sleep together, and it was the best sex of her life. Yes, she's going to break rules for that guy, right? But that does not mean that she has now effectively chosen that guy. So the mistake guys make is they assume at the point that a woman hooks up with a guy, she's automatically chosen him. Not how dating works these days, guys. That woman could hook up with you and then realistically go out with 2 or 3 other guys on dates that week as first dates and maybe hook up with 1 or 2 of them. That does not mean that she didn't have a good time with you or isn't trying to build something with you, but it does realistically mean that she has other guys in the frame that she's trying to figure out. So yeah, just because she's breaking a rule, I don't typically hook up with 5-10 guys. That 5-10 guy is still going to probably mess up in other ways. He might text her too much. He might call all the time. He might be jealous or obsessive. He might not let her hang out with girlfriends. We don't know. This is why just because she's hooking up with you doesn't mean that she's chosen you right away. All right. So, but yeah, if aesthetically you're there on the first night and she's looking at all these things, whatever, you have a higher chance of her breaking her rule. But most women have found, even if they get a guy that has all the stats that she wants, that doesn't mean that her interaction with him is going to still be pleasurable. So, because think about all the millionaire and billionaire guys that are losing their wives, right? I've said this before, right? Is that they had all the stats. Some of the dudes are 6'6" and have muscles. They played sports and baseball, whatever, and yet they still can't keep women because behind closed doors, these women are having conversations with these guys and are interacting with them, and they're trying to be overly wordy and overly texty and be overly jealous. And so even though he has all the stats on paper, the interaction is not making her feel as though this guy's going to be long-term. So even guys that she would break rules for by hooking up on the first date with or whatever, for example, that doesn't mean that he's going to last that 2 to 3 months that she's needing to fully solidify how she feels about it, if that makes sense. So hopefully this helps you out. All right, we got time for a couple more questions before my voice gives out. Shout outs to Green Tea. Let's see here. There are a few in here that I would answer tonight. Okay, here's a good question. Here's a short question, right? So this guy asked, when a girl does not respond for X amount of time, let's say she doesn't respond for like a week or a month, etc., and once she finally does respond, should you wait less, the same, or more time before you respond back? Thank you in advance. Keep up the good stuff. So I get what this guy is saying because, even I've taught about, trying to mirror a woman's behavior. So that would mean like, if she doesn't hit you up for like 6 months and then she hits you up, should you also now wait 6 months to connect with her? I don't generally believe that. I'm sorry, I don't. Like, my thing is this, is that at the point that a woman is reaching out to you, let's say you were talking to her in the beginning and then you text her one day and she doesn't respond for like a month, right? So you're thinking, why did she ghost me? I've taught on this channel plenty of times that guys tend to overtext a lot. So it could just be you were there too much, you were expressing too many feelings and things, and she broke away from you because her brain basically needs to do a reset. Her brain needs to go like, okay, I still kind of like this guy, but he's doing a lot right now. So let me just push him away. And in the moment, she's feeling she's pushing away for good. But what's happening is a month later, she's like, okay, I think I still kind of like that guy. We could have had a shot. She's had a month now to forget about you. So she doesn't remember all the clingy, needy behavior you were doing. So at that point, she's like, we had some good conversations. That guy was really great. You know what? I'm going to reach out to see what's up. So she reaches out. Hey, what's up? This is not the time to try to mirror her behavior. Like if she didn't talk to you for a week or a month or whatever, and she hits you up, hey, what's going on? You trying to mirror back, I'm going to wait a month to text back. So this is not the thing. When women are reaching out to you, what they're basically trying to subconsciously or passively tell you is, hey, I think I might be interested again, as long as you don't mess it up, as long as you don't do the same clingy behavior you were doing before, right? And so when this happens, I'll do like this. If I was texting a woman and she didn't contact me for say like a month, right? Or even 6 months, at the point that she hit me up, I would definitely want to make her wait a little bit because now that she's reaching out to me, it means that she's desperate to hear back from me, right? That desperation is going to carry through regardless of how long you wait. But I typically would do no more than like 24 hours because that's enough time. If she texts you at like say 12 in the afternoon, you don't hear back till the next day, then in her head, she's going to be thinking that whole time, man, he's not reaching back. Oh, I must have really hurt his feelings. Oh my God, why did I walk away? Blah. What it's also doing is it's showing her in the process that you're not as needy as she once thought you were. You waiting just 24 hours to contact her, she's going to get the idea that, oh, I thought that he was just waiting by the phone to talk to me, but he clearly must be a busy guy. He's got friends and family. Oh my God, maybe he's talking to other girls right now. Like, I don't know what's going on because he's not hitting me back right away like he used to. You wait 24 hours, then you hit her up. Hey, nice hearing from you. What you been up to? She hits you back. Oh, I've been doing good. I'm just thinking about you. What's going on? This is net. At that point, you say, hey, I'm busy right now, but I'd love to catch up sometime. Why don't you come over to my place later on? We can talk or discuss or do whatever. All right. That's when you go into like asking her to hang out mode. But you're not doing it in a needy way. You're not saying, oh, it's so nice to hear from you again. Oh my God, I miss you so much. It's just casual, cool conversation. But all that's to say, you don't need to wait a week, a month, 6 months, just because she waited that long, okay? When they're coming back to you, that means that they're actually legitimately probably ready to see you and talk to you and learn about you some more and possibly go on a date with you. And so, but this goes back to when women reach back out to you, learn from your previous texting mistake and don't get back into trying to text her all the time or send this good morning text or all this bull crap, all right? You send text only when you're trying to ask for dates, because women are going to be better bonding with you when they're in person versus digitally anyway. And you trying to text her all the time during the day, she's got other stuff to do. She's not trying to be around her phone all the time to text you back. I'm just sorry. You're new stimuli. You do not matter yet. You, at the point where you become into a relationship with her, then she'll be more open to you texting her more often. But even then, you should still limit your texting to like maybe 2 or 3 times a day and to potentially ask her out on a date. Like, that's it. I'm sorry. In my dating life, I found that me using the phone just to plan stuff is more than enough. When I'm in a relationship, I'll text a meme here or there, but I still typically stay off the phone, except when I'm trying to set up time to legitimately see them in person. All right. So hopefully, guy, this helps you out. Let's see. We have an interesting, So this guy, this is a comment that was left under one of my videos. And this is a tip from a 62-year-old viewer of my videos. Thank you for watching, by the way. I like to know how my audience ages range. So this guy right here, he says, I'm a 62-year-old male on eHarmony. There are more women interested in me than in my 20s. I tell you guys, the older you get, the more mature you are, or the more mature you appear to women, the more established you are. And women ages like 25 to 75, especially with this guy, the world is your oyster. That age range will look at you like, but you got all the stuff that I need and you are going to secure me. And so I should be able to get this guy. Anyway, he says, I started dating a high quality female 3 times. I wined and dined her, was a perfect gentleman. Didn't try to be physical in any way. She began to withdraw. Her texts were without feeling and sentiment. 0 phone calls. I then mirrored her behavior. Again, 62. I completely gave her 0 attention. I decided to move on. Now she is blowing up my phone, apologizing, and texting. And you know what? I don't care. Exactly. And that should be the attitude you guys always have. If you hit her up for a text and she doesn't respond back, okay, talk to somebody else. If she hits you back, okay, great. I guess we'll go out. Like, this is why I try to stress indifference in the dating world is your friend. The less emotional attachment you add to these various actions that women are or are not doing, the more in control you're going to be and the more likely of a man that women are going to see as a potential catch. Just real talk. 62 doing this. So across the board, whether I'm talking to 20-year-olds or 60-year-olds, you being indifferent to them calling and texting you is going to get you positive results. Anyway, he says, there's plenty more knocking down the door to contact me. Ambivalence is a powerful tool. My advice to any of you youngsters, don't let your physical attraction for a woman turn you into a sniveling, worrying beta male. If you find one you think you like, give it 3 dates before you decide. I'd still say go 3 months, but again, at least don't start getting obsessed about a woman after date 1, you know? And don't let your lust for her override your logic and common sense. That's ample time to figure out her personality and make an educated decision on how to continue. If she's hot, don't tell her so. Every other swing Chad out there has told her so already. Be aloof. What I tell you guys all the time, don't try to overcompliment women. I tell you to don't be obsessed with them right away. I tell you guys that in the world of dating, of the 2 of you, she can apply her emotion to the situation. It is more beneficial to you if you are not the one being overly emotional or overly expressing your feelings, because you need to stay on the straight and narrow. I know you want to get into this relationship with this woman and have a romantic time. And hey, you can do that by way of romantic actions, but everything you do during the dating process should be thought out and planned out methodically, because you're going to air better if you have a blueprint map on how to date, because women like guys that know how to handle them. When you don't look like you know what you're doing with women, that's what scares women off. So I know you're thinking, but if I learn all this stuff, then I'm going to be a mechanical dater. Exactly. You should have a methodical way of dating that's going to help you get the most maximum outcome of women that you can possibly get, because that outcome is going to let you know across the board that what you're doing, women like. And if you're not getting a lot of women, that means what you're doing right now, women do not like. If you need help with that, you can go to introvertdatingsuccess.com. I would love to help coach you. Or you can get one of my ebooks or programs that will walk you through the ins and outs of what those things are so you can effectively get women and date them the right way. All right. But thank you, Guy, for leaving that, because that just proves everything that I've been saying on all these shows. You know, I got a couple more comments that I said to these people that I would answer their questions during the show. So I'm going to do that. Keep man my word. Right. So this guy left a comment under the video I did about alcohol. I said, basically, you guys need to really consider giving up alcohol because it can impair and affect your judgment about things in relationships, whether it be like you saying certain things to women or certain decisions you're making about the women you're dating, right? So this guy said, years ago, I got dumped with no explanation by the love of my life. I was devastated. I started drinking to numb my pain. Over time, the alcohol made me gain about 50 pounds. Ouch. Which, of course, makes me less attracted to women. So then I'm so lonely, I drink to numb my pain. It's a vicious cycle. If I had stayed away from excessive drinking, I wouldn't have gained the weight, and I probably would have found a new lady. Now I'm trying to stay off the alcohol so I can be healthy, think rationally, and hopefully get a girlfriend. So first I want to say, you know what? Kudos to this guy for recognizing that, hey, you slacked. You know, it's when you go through a breakup, sometimes our minds just go to like, all I want to do is numb the pain. And all I want to do is do things that are going to make me feel good. And unfortunately, in our society, a lot of things that make us feel good correlate with like drinking and eating the wrong foods. And so it's very easy to not be aware of that and just let your brain take over. Next thing you know, you've gained like 40, 50 pounds. You're like, what's going on? And it's like all this stuff, you know? So kudos. But this guy's story really illustrates the point that, you know, things like alcohol, things like snacking on foods that are the wrong foods, like, I know there's a thing about, you know, oh, women, you need to keep their, you know, weight and check this and that. But guys, we need to also. Like, real talk, it's not fair for us to be out of shape for our partners. You know, we should be trying to do the best we can to be ready for that next person and be in the best shape that we possibly can. This does not mean having to have a whole lot of muscle. Say, I'm like 170s right now. I don't have a whole lot of muscle. I'm relatively lean. I could lose a few more pounds here and there, but like I try to keep myself at this general frame because I know that to the person that I'm dating, it's not fair for them to see me have a lack of energy or to have a lower libido because I've gained excessive weight or to feel more depressed about myself because I'm eating these foods that are chemically causing me to feel more depressed. Like, that's not fair to them. And more importantly, it's also not fair to you. It's not fair for you to get yourself into a position with your body to whereby you're living a depressed life where you're not able to go after the things you want, where you're feeling tired and lazy all the time. Like, those things aren't fair to you. So you need to be treating your body like the temple it is and really consider what things you're intaking and what things you need to be getting rid of that are going to better your body. Now, for me, I have a history in my family of previous relatives being alcoholics, right? So I saw that and said, I don't want to do that. So I waited until I was 21 to have my first drink. And then even to this day, I'd say that collectively, the amount of drinking I've done has been like very, very minimal. Like, there were my party years where even at parties, I'd have at most like 1 or 2 shots. I think the most I ever had at a party was like 7 shots, but I was at my own place, so who cared, right? But I've never been drunk. I've never passed out from alcohol because ultimately I just like juices. But also I realized that like alcohol is literally depressant. It is a depressant. It is sugary, so it's designed to help you gain weight and designed to make you feel depressed. And this is why, if you've noticed, a lot of times, I said this in a previous video, a lot of messages that I get from guys are like, things were going great, and then we had a little too much to drink, and then we were fighting. Do you not see that the common denominator is that you are drinking and you are more apt to have relationship problems and problems relating to women in general when you are having drinks in your body that are taking over your brain and causing you to say or do things that are not conductive or conducive to a good relationship. So I encourage guys across the board, like, limit your drinking. I probably these days, I might have a drink every like month and a half, and it's usually like maybe like 1 glass of something. But I really tend to err for like lemonades, juices. Most of the days I drink water. I'm drinking, this is like regular ass green tea today, you know? So I try to keep it very much like alcohol free as possible. If you want to have a drink every so often, I get it. Also, don't think that you need to have dates where you're going to ask women out for drinks and then have to drink alcohol. As I said in that previous video, women are following your program. If you decide that you don't want to drink at a bar, do that. If she wants to still get a drink, that's fine. Let her get a drink. You get a mocktail, or you get like a lemonade, or get some water. And if she's like, well, I thought you were going to drink, you can be like, look, babe, I do what I want to do. So if you want to get a drink, I'm not going to judge you for it. I get it. Alcohol can be tasty. Go ahead and get that drink. I do not feel like getting a drink right now. That's going to make you feel awkward. That's on you. But you should never have it be on you, guy. You drink what you want to drink. If it so happens you don't want to drink alcohol, don't let that cause you to think she's going to be judgmental of you. And if she is, she's probably an alcoholic, and you probably shouldn't date her anyway. You know, just throwing that out there. Anyway, let's see. I got a couple more of these things. Okay. So there's a guy that left a comment under my how to uncover problem women early in the dating process. What I talked about, like trying to vet women and try to figure out like how they have problems, the kind of problems they have, and if it's affecting how they generally are showing up in their day-to-day, right? So this guy says, there's an old saying, when someone tells you who they are, believe them. I completely agree. He says, I've had 2 girls I've dated turn into crazed stalkers in my time. Both had red flags, but I was happy to ignore because I didn't think they could do anything to me. Well, they did. They did their best to destroy my life by any means necessary. Women like that are out there. And if guys are going around just trying to impress a girl because she's pretty, they're going to meet them. Thankfully, I've developed an eye for problem women now. I walk at the first sign of a problem. I think the issue with men is we do see the signs, but we ignore them or overlook them. You don't need to accept garbage from women. There are 3 billion of them. You can walk. No woman is worth your sanity or worse. Trust your gut. You often know if someone ain't right. So everything this guy is saying is correct. Like most of the time, if you really think about the women that didn't work out or the women that later turned out to be crazy, if you really, really look, there was a moment earlier in the dating process where she showed that and you ignored it. And the reason we ignore it, guys, honestly, is because a lot of us haven't had a bevy of women we've been able to date. So when one comes along, we're like, I don't want to ruin this. And we start thinking we got to impress them. And we forget that in the process, they have to also impress us because we don't think we're going to get another shot. I can assure you, as you get older, you'll have more chances. All right. But the point is that, yeah, you cannot ignore crazy early on. Because hey, we all put on the front game when we first start dating. She might be able to hide who she is for the first 60 to 90 days. Just like the thing I read earlier where the guy's like, oh, month 3, I found out she drank alcohol and she said she never drank alcohol. So that's why, aside from women doing their 2 to 3 months, you need to do your 2 to 3 months because stuff will start coming out. You need to spend that 2 to 3 months when you're dating a woman to ask certain questions, to figure out her previous past, her lifestyle, her family situation, and really try to dole out like any kind of trauma she has or start doling out behaviors that she might be able to hide on those first few dates that she can't hide on date like 8 or 9, And so as that happens, you'll start to see like, oh, the nice thing is if you're not in a relationship with her yet, it's going to be easier to break out from her during the dating phase versus when you agree to be her boyfriend. And now you're like, oh, I want to get out. But she was showing you who she was in those first 3 months. When you said yes to being her boyfriend, that means you are now accepting of all the tragic trauma stuff that she's bringing to the relationship. And at that point, you can't say it's not fair because she showed it to you. Again, women can hide who they are for a little bit, but not for a lot of it. And so this is why you want to date more logically because you'll be able to start analyzing and piecing things together that maybe don't quite make sense or saying, wait, you said this thing over here, but then you did this thing over here. These don't match up. What's going on? And if you're not bogged down by like the lust of it all and you have a good head on your shoulders and you're thinking about stuff straight, then you'll be able to see these things before it's too late and you'll get out, So thank you, Guy, for leaving that comment. All right. We have one more comment I'm going to answer. And then I think that's all the comments. Some of these just are like shorter answers, but I think I got most of the ones here. So I'm going to answer this last question because I think it's an interesting question. So this guy asked a question. He says, how do you deal with really promiscuous women? The younger 18 to 20-year-old girls are often really sweet and nice, but promiscuous and are rotationally dating. All right. So here's the unfortunately honest answer is that some women are going to be really good at hiding their promiscuous past. Even ones that like saying, you've been dating them for 6 months. And as far as you can tell, they've had a couple of relationships in the past and they hadn't ever brought up like hooking up with a bunch of dudes. And admittedly, maybe you never asked her, And then you have a conversation one day where you just start asking about her dating life. And she's like, oh, well, I dated this one guy, this and that. And I dated this other guy and did this and that. And you start looking like, wait, that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Like, oh, she's dating like 12 guys. Like, holy crap. Like the numbers are pretty getting up there. Like, but I didn't know this beforehand, I literally dated women that I found out later on were like extremely promiscuous in their college years, but like they're older. I wouldn't guess that crap, And so the reality is, like I said, women are going to be able to hide that they're promiscuous. So I will say this, for the women that are promiscuous, I'm talking like you're saying 18 to 20. So maybe you see them on campus or maybe you're an older guy that just happens to run across 18 to 20-year-olds, but they already have the reputation of being loose. And, their reps just know like, oh, she's Mrs. Suck 'em down or, oh, she's Mrs. Hump 'em dry, whatever. Like they had that reputation out there. If you're not trying to purposefully date a woman like that, then do not date her. And it's going to be hard because you're going to think this, right? You're going to think, especially if you're a guy that hasn't had any in a while, you're going to think, but that's a guaranteed hookup. Like, I know for sure it's been a drought and I just want to hook up now. And she is promiscuous. She will do it with anybody. And I want to be that anybody. This goes back to, though, as a guy, it's going to be better if you practice sexual discipline. So if you're not wanting a girl like that long-term, and she has a reputation and for a fact that she's promiscuous, then don't deal with her. Now, ideally, you'll be able to do that, but realistically, I know it's going to be hard to do. And so you can't judge yourself if you happen to do that, but just know that if you do happen to do her, that she's probably not going to be relationship material. And you don't want to make the mistake of hooking up with a promiscuous woman thinking that it could go long-term, or worse, that you're going to be the guy that comes in and changes her mind and makes her see the light. Like, don't be the hero. Like, if she's promiscuous and you know you want to hook up with her, do that going in with no intentions of her actually being in a relationship. Now, if you're dating a woman already, like she's your girlfriend or she's even your fiance or whatever, and then you find out all of a sudden, oh, she was hella promiscuous, you have a decision to make. And the decision is looking at how she is now and determining if how she was in her past is going to ultimately alter how she's going to act in the future. Like, you can really think, okay, I found out that she's promiscuous. She hooked up with like 100 dudes. And now you're like engaged to her. Like, oh crap, is she going to want to like cheat on me in the future because she had all these things in her past? Is she going to be disciplined enough to not want any more guys besides me? Like, that's a fight that you have to have in your head. And this goes to, you have to now look at the evidence of how she's been treating you. Has she been very loyal? Does she have a lot of guy friends around versus just like some woman friends? Is she trying to hang out around guys all the time? When you guys go out and there's a bunch of other guys there, is she flirting with the bartender or flirting with the waiter, or is she just looking loyal to you? Like, you have to then look at like the evidence she's shown you up to this point that indicates where she's going to go. All right. And then you also have to look at, based on you now knowing about her promiscuous past, what does that say about what she's been through? Because as I've said before, a lot of women that are highly promiscuous had a lot of trauma. And she may not have mentioned any kind of trauma that she had been through leading up to when you found out about her being promiscuous. So you got to find out, okay, so she was promiscuous, crap. Now I got to ask, did she have any kind of trauma? Was she touched in weird ways? Was she like, harmfully physical with guys against her will? Like, you have to ask these other various follow-up questions and then again, make a determination. Now, I'm not going to say what your judgment should be because only you know your situation. You might date this girl and realize, oh, she's promiscuous. And also I'm recognizing these various other signs that indicate she might not be loyal, in which case you got to get rid of her. Or you could be like, oh, I found out she was promiscuous, but she's given her life to the Lord, or she moved away from where she was doing all that stuff so she could start a new life anew, and she treats me really well, and she hasn't given me any indications that she wants to step out on me. It's a hard gamble, Promiscuous women do not have the best reputation at being all that loyal, so you have to really look at how she's been up to this point. But it's also why you should realistically date a woman for like 2 or 3 years before you get engaged to her, so you can really kind of suss that stuff out, So hopefully, guys, this helps you out. That's the best I can tell you, Anyway, guys, that is all I got for today. Thank you so much for watching. We do the show every Tuesday at 5:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you have questions you want me to answer on the show, you can either write to me at harrywilmington@gmail.com, or you can leave a comment on any one of my videos. I'm telling you, I go through all my videos, all the comments you guys leave, and I look at them and use them for this show. All right. So be sure to do that. So got a comment in the chat here. Okay. So anyway, so be sure to do all that stuff, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Harry Wilmington, and I will catch you guys on the next show. I'm out.
You's a bad boy, but you can't stop, won't stop. You a high-earning, high-value, high-class man. You a high-earning, high-value, high-class man. You a high-earning, high-value, high-class man. You a high-class man. You a high-class man. You a high-earning, high-value, high-class